after the Snow White thing, I'm gonna be honest, I will be shocked if she gets cast in almost anything.
What is it like for you now having all of this? I think it's a lot of pressure, right?
It's definitely a lot of pressure, but I surround myself with very good people who keep me grounded and try to just stay as true to myself as I possibly can.
2.3 million dislikes. Imagine having that much of a dedicated hater base. That's insane.
She couldn't keep her mouth shut.
Disney made a decision, but they didn't announce it. No trailer, no poster, no countdown, no red carpet premiere. After nearly 2 years of hype, controversy, and constant damage control, Snow White quietly vanished. The remake that was supposed to be a Disney Plus centerpiece was gone. No global push, no marketing rollout, no fanfare. And now insiders are whispering it wasn't a delay, it was a cancellation. Because the release date came and Disney said nothing, not even a tweet. Why? Because of the one name Disney can't afford to defend anymore, Rachel Zegler.
And it's lonely. It's very lonely. I just know that if that loneliness can exist, so can other things, and I will be okay. Maybe that's a weird takeaway. Regardless, this is not supposed to be anything other than insightful entertainment. It's what I do best. Just know that I am the most grateful person alive. But I'm also keeping it real.
She was already one of the most controversial actresses Disney had ever cast. But after the Evita meltdown in London, studio executives reportedly reached a breaking point. Multiple sources close to Disney say the company is terrified of reigniting Backlash by platforming Rachel now, even on streaming. One insider even called her a ticking part-time bomb. And with Zegler still trending for all the wrong reasons, backstage screaming matches, cast walkouts, and a $50 million lawsuit against her own agent, Disney apparently decided the risk just wasn't worth it.
Now, fans are growing more concerned about Disney's new Snow White remake, mostly because of what the lead actress has been saying to the press. Rachel Zegler has been described as a walking PR disaster for Disney's. We've heard her bag the classic story before, but there's more.
They buried it because, in their eyes, Snow White isn't a fairy tale anymore, it's a brand liability. But that wasn't the whole story, because the real reason Disney pulled the plug goes much deeper, and it all started when Rachel Zegler showed the world that she hadn't changed at all.
Okay, it's great. I'm honored. I don't know why I sound so angry right now. I'm honored. Am I a psychopath? No, I've been getting a lot of questions about how do I feel? I feel amazing. We start kind of soon, and I'm just like...
Long before Evita collapsed, long before the lawsuit headlines started flying, Rachel Zegler's image was already in critical condition. It began with the interviews. When the first trailers for Snow White dropped, fans expected Disney magic. What they got was something else entirely. Rachel mocked the original film, calling it weird, creepy, and dated. She said the prince was essentially a stalker, that the movie was being rewritten to reflect modern values, and that Snow White didn't need saving anymore. The internet exploded, and not in a good way.
I know that you've told me before that your version of Snow White is different, and it's more of a 2022 version of Snow White. What did you mean by that?
I mean, you know, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird.
Super weird.
So we didn't do that this time.
Audiences weren't just upset, they were offended. Decades of love for a timeless story had been dismissed with a smirk, but it didn't stop there. Red carpet clips started going viral. Not for the fashion, but for Rachel's tone. Sarcastic, dismissive, cold. The girl once praised as Spielberg's breakout star now seemed above it all. Arrogant, entitled. Even fans who had supported her early on began to pull back.
The cartoon was made 85 years ago, and therefore it's extremely dated when it comes to the ideas of women being in roles of power and what a woman is fit for in the world. And so when we came to reimagining the actual role of Snow White, it became about the fairest of them all, meaning who is the most just and who can become a fantastic leader. And the reality is, you know, Snow White has to learn a lot of lessons about coming into her own power before she can come into power over a kingdom.
She was accused of being ungrateful online and completely out of touch with the Disney audience, the very people she was supposed to win over. And behind the scenes, things weren't any better. Multiple sources from earlier productions said she was difficult to direct, hyper-controlling, and constantly clashing with senior crew. Still, Disney pushed forward. They hoped the drama would fade, that the film and Rachel could be saved with the right PR campaign. But it never faded. In fact, it got worse.
I never want it to come off as me being ungrateful for the opportunities I have when I say that this has been the biggest adjustment of my life. Like understanding the way my life operates now, being who I am, and the things that I've been so fortunate to make. It comes with so much ground that I never thought I would be able to cover, and that people think I'm doing poorly, and other people think I'm doing gracefully, and I don't think I'm doing it at all.
If Rachel Zegler's reputation was already hanging by a thread, Evita didn't just cut it, it set it on fire. The West End production was supposed to be her moment of redemption, a chance to step away from the backlash and prove she could command. A live stage with elegance, discipline, and grace. But what actually happened behind the scenes wasn't just messy, it was catastrophic.
Normal things are happening.
Good day. How are you, my dear? Hello, Diego. What a pleasure. Nice to see you again. Hi. Nice to meet you. Great to see you. Right, let me introduce you to everybody. Michael Harrison, other producer. Hello. And of course, Andrew.
Have you met Jimmy Lloyd?
No. What does he do?
Didn't ask him.
What do you do?
I just do my best.
That's the best I've ever seen it. Can't wait to see you in the Palladium. My favourite theatre anywhere, actually. Oh, you're a fantastic cast. It's going to be a sensation, I know it. Thank you, everybody.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Reports began surfacing within weeks of rehearsal starting, whispers of tension, walkouts, and chaos behind closed doors. Crew members allegedly quit mid-run. One source claimed Rachel screamed at a lighting operator for missing her cue. Another said she refused to rehearse certain scenes if the creative direction didn't align with her vision. Then came the leaks. Private rehearsal notes, anonymous testimonials from cast and staff. One alleged email described the environment as hostile, calling Zegler's presence unsustainable for the production. It was déjà vu.
She said she was scared of the original cartoon, watched it once, and never picked it up again. She should have watched it a few times and maybe became more familiar with the story. And before the script went through such a dramatic change that it sounds like she had a part in, Disney, an accomplice with that, obviously it was their production. You should have, watched it a little closely and maybe stayed a little closer to the original blockbuster, wonderful story written by whoever it was, but produced by Disney.
The same patterns people had warned about during Snow White were now playing out on a London stage. Only this time, there was no Disney studio to shield her, no PR crisis team to run interference, no corporate safety net. It was just Rachel, unfiltered, unchecked, and unraveling. And suddenly, the headlines returned. But this time, they weren't about fairy tale remakes or feminism in film. They were about meltdowns, walkouts, and an actress reportedly so difficult to work with that she was driving professionals out of the room. The backlash didn't just return, it intensified. Even fans who had defended her during the Snow White controversy were stunned. Because this time, it looked like she hadn't learned a thing. And Disney noticed. According to one insider, Evita was the moment executives realized Rachel Zegler wasn't a PR hiccup. She was a long-term liability. That's when discussions reportedly began to pull the plug on Snow White's streaming debut before the headlines could get worse. Behind the scenes at Disney, panic was setting in. The Evita disaster had barely cooled when executives reportedly called an emergency meeting to reassess the Snow White rollout. Not because the film wasn't finished, not due to technical delays, but because they couldn't risk another Rachel. Zegler headlined derailing everything. And just like that, the release went dark. There was no official cancellation, no press release, no postponement post on social media. The film, once a major tentpole for Disney's streaming calendar, suddenly vanished from promotion. Industry insiders say it wasn't a glitch, it was strategic. A Disney Plus source claimed the film was quietly scrubbed from the internal release calendar, with a new note that read, "Hold indefinitely pending talent resolution." In other words, they're not releasing it until Rachel Zegler stops being a problem. Executives are reportedly terrified that launching Snow White will reignite the fire. White, now with Rachel still at the center of multiple controversies, would do more harm than good. One insider said, "Every time she trends, it's negative. Every interview clip is a PR grenade." Even worse, they allegedly fear that releasing the film would reignite scrutiny over why Disney defended her in the first place, and whether the studio knew how volatile things had gotten behind closed doors. So the new strategy? Silence. They've paused all marketing, scrubbed plans for a press tour, and internally, staff have been told to redirect attention to other upcoming releases and avoid commenting on Snow White entirely. And with Zegler still embroiled in lawsuits, public feuds, and social media meltdowns, that silence may last longer than anyone expected. Because if Disney has learned anything from the past year, it's this. Every time Rachel Zegler speaks, the best internet listens, and not in the way they want. Disney isn't just worried about one movie. They're worried about the entire brand falling apart. In the past 2 years, the company has faced one identity crisis after another. Political controversies, underperforming blockbusters, declining subscriber numbers, and brutal stock drops. And through it all, Snow White was supposed to be a win, a nostalgic reimagining, a safe bet. Instead, it turned radioactive, the casting backlash, the rewritten plot, the removal of beloved characters, the constant accusations of woke marketing, and then the face of it all, Rachel Zegler. Disney executives had hoped time would help, that the criticism would fade, that the audience would come around. But after the Evita scandal, the lawsuit against her agent, and her now iconic quote about not needing a prince to save her, the situation became impossible to spin. And that's when the questions started getting asked behind closed doors. If we release this movie, are we doing more harm to the brand than good? The answer, apparently, is yes. Insiders claim that marketing teams warned Disney executives, if we platform her now, we reignite the backlash. It won't be about the film, it'll be about her. In an era where every decision gets dissected online, Disney couldn't afford another wave of outrage. They couldn't risk the headlines. Disney doubles down on controversial star. Snow White released despite allegations. More drama than magic. So, rather than fight the storm, they shut the castle gates. And here's where it gets worse. Sources say Disney is now considering cutting their losses entirely, with some executives pushing to re-edit or even bury the film permanently. Because the damage isn't just reputational, it's financial. Millions spent on a production that no one wants to touch, a lead actress who can't go on press tours, a remake too tainted to market, and an audience that's already made up its mind. They don't trust the product, and they don't want to see her face again. It didn't take long for people to notice. The Snow White release date passed, and nothing happened. No countdown, no streaming debut, no cast interviews, just silence. And for fans who've been following the Rachel Zegler controversy for months, the message was clear. Disney pulled the plug. Across social media, users began piecing it together. Threads popped up on Reddit. TikTok speculated that the film had been quietly shelved. On Twitter, one post went viral with a brutal caption, Disney watched the Evita meltdown and said never mind. And while Disney refused to comment, fans weren't shy. Some cheered the cancellation, calling it long overdue and saying Zegler's behavior made her unfit to lead any major franchise. Others said Disney finally did what they should have done months ago, cut their losses. One YouTube comment under an old Snow White teaser summed it up best. The fairest of them all? Not anymore. The white teaser read, "This aged like milk. Where's the movie? Oh right, in PR jail." But not everyone was celebrating. A few diehard fans accused Disney of cowardice, blaming the studio for letting internet hate campaigns dictate creative decisions. They argued that if Zegler was difficult, Disney should have known before casting her, not abandoned her when things got hard. Even so, the louder voices were the ones asking the real question: why is Disney still pretending like nothing happened? Meanwhile, internal leaks have only fueled the fire. An alleged memo from a Disney Plus marketing manager described the Snow White situation as unsalvageable and warned teams to redirect resources to lower-risk projects. Another claimed Disney was quietly revisiting contracts for upcoming productions to include stricter conduct clauses, a clear sign that Zegler's public spiral has spooked more than just the PR team. And as more details trickle out, one thing becomes obvious. Even the people inside Disney are trying to distance themselves from this mess. What was once positioned as a major streaming release is now being whispered about like a scandal, something to be buried, not broadcast. And the person at the center of it all? Still silent. No apology, no clarity. Just a trail of burned bridges and a film no one's willing to defend at this point. It's no longer a question of whether Rachel Zegler is controversial. It's a question of whether she's finished. Hollywood has a long history of messy stars, difficult personalities, and bad press. But very few actors crash and burn this early, this fast, and this spectacularly. And almost none of them take down a billion-dollar brand's fairy tale remake. In the process, Rachel Zegler was never supposed to be in this position. She was supposed to be the chosen one, Spielberg's. Star, a Gen Z success story, the Cinderella who went from YouTube videos to leading a major motion picture in just a few years. She was hailed as the future of the industry, winning awards before her first film even hit theaters. But now, she's the face of a disaster Disney doesn't want to touch. And the scariest part, for Rachel, for her fans, for anyone paying attention, is this. No one in Hollywood is rushing to save her. There's no heartfelt New York Times profile reframing her as misunderstood. No A-list director stepping in to defend her. No massive studio project lined up to remind the world what she can do. There's just silence, and in Hollywood, silence is lethal. Because when the phones stop ringing, and they are stopping, your team doesn't tell you you've been blacklisted. They just start saying things like, they went another direction, they're taking a different tone, or you're too hot right now, maybe in a few years. Rachel is hearing that now. Casting directors are reportedly taking her name off shortlists. One streaming platform allegedly removed her from consideration for a lead role after her Evita fallout went viral. Another film she was attached to is now on hold indefinitely. Insiders claim even brand partnerships are fading, the kind of deals that used to pour in after one red carpet. Gone. No fragrance campaigns, no fashion houses, no magazine shoots, just a growing wall of silence. Why? Rachel Zegler is now associated with risk, not just because she's polarizing, but because she's unpredictable. She's accused too many people, burned too many bridges, and doubled down every time she had a chance to step back. She's no longer just a headline. She's a liability. And that's not something Hollywood forgets easily. This isn't about one lawsuit, one bad interview, or one chaotic stage performance. It's about a pattern, a narrative that's been building ever since the moment she told the world that Snow White didn't need saving, and then proceeded to blow up her own castle. Now, even fans are starting to walk away. Scroll through the comments on older interviews and trailers, and you'll see the shift. People who once defended her now say things like, I wanted to like her, but she made it impossible. This isn't bullying, this is accountability. Because really, how do you sabotage 2 careers in 1 year? That's what this is about. Rachel didn't just lose a Disney role, she lost something far more valuable: public trust. And in today's world, where perception is currency and likability is leverage, that's a career killer. But is there a way back? That depends on Rachel. Comebacks are real. Hollywood loves a redemption arc. But they start with 3 things: silence, accountability, and time. So far, Rachel has given us none of that. No acknowledgement of the damage she's caused, no attempt to mend fences with former collaborators, no statement expressing even a hint of humility. Instead, she's filed lawsuits. Rachel Zegler has posted cryptic messages and watched everything she built slip through her fingers. So, what's next? If she continues down this path, blaming, accusing, isolating, she may not get another shot. Studios are already replacing difficult stars with safer, quieter options, and the longer Rachel trends for the wrong reasons, the easier it becomes to leave her behind. Some insiders believe she'll vanish quietly. No statement, no interview, just fewer appearances, fewer roles, until eventually she's a trivia question, a reminder of what happens when ego outpaces grace. Others think she'll try one last push, a tell-all interview, a rebrand, maybe even a pivot into streaming or theater. Something smaller, something safer. But even that won't work unless she faces the truth. Because right now, Rachel Zegler isn't losing roles because of internet trolls or unfair gossip. she's losing roles because people don't trust her anymore. Not as a performer, not as a collaborator, and not as a public figure. She had the world watching. Now they're watching her fall. And the saddest part? She still thinks she's the victim.